I don't know. We were fighting about something. She's always saying I don't listen to her. I don't even remember what she said. Today on the Manspace.
Welcome to the Manspace podcast. We're your hosts, Doctors Matt Brown and Rob Porter, and clinical therapist Mike Porter.
Welcome, spacemen.
To a Robless episode.
Yeah. What did he say? Why?
No, I didn't even ask.
Yeah, I didn't either. But
not that we don't care, Rob. We do.
You just don't need excuses with us. We just understand and take you at your word.
Yep.
So
I'll start doing it every week.
I've got a clothing observation. Not you. No, I'm sure a lot of our listeners have probably ordered these, but I ordered the True Classic t-shirt packet. Yeah. Have you ever bought those?
I have one True Classic. I have 3 fresh clean threads or fresh clean tees.
Oh, okay. I saw that one. Which one do you like better?
Fresh clean tees. Except, this is what, like, Rob and I were talking about this last week. They got super inconsistent in, like, their length.
Oh.
And so I would have some that fit great, but then I had others where I was like, dude, this is like covering my butt. It's like a shirt, like, or a dress. Like, what the crap?
The fresh clean ones did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Super irritated me.
Yeah, I think I got a size too big. I'm wearing it right now. But
is that that's True Classic?
Yeah. But my biggest complaint is the freaking sleeve length.
That was
dude,
my
it comes
issue
down to like my
it.
elbow, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my whole issue with it.
Yeah.
The Fresh Clean Threads has a much better length sleeve.
Okay. I'm hoping with the I ordered a size smaller. So hopefully it'll be a little bit higher. I like the length and the material's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really wanted, like, I cannot stand 100% cotton anything now.
Yeah.
It's miserable, and it's not just because of where I live. Like, it's just like the blend. This is like a 60-40 polyester, and so we'll see if the smaller size fits better. But yeah, so the what is it?
Fresh clean threads.
Fresh, clean threads.
Yeah.
But the length of the t-shirt just...
Well, so yes, and that's like ultimately that's why I was like, I was spending like $18 a t-shirt, and I was like, I'm not going to pay $18 a t-shirt. Like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
But I was just on their website last night, in fact. And they now offer in most of their colors short, regular, and tall.
Tall.
And I was like, oh, maybe I can, like, maybe now I can hit the length right.
So the sleeves, were they like half this?
Probably.
Because I also have a shirt that's like probably about there that feels too short.
Well, so I have, like, I wear a lot of the Target ones. And those ones sometimes feel too short to me.
Yeah. Yep. That's the one I've got. It's a Target one.
But the Fresh Clean was like the perfect balance between the two, because it was the same thing in the True Classic. It felt like it like came down to my elbow, and I was like, "What the?"
Yeah, it's all the pictures. All the pictures they show are like up to here, but not very good.
Yeah,
in their advertising.
I liked Fresh Clean threads for that. Like, I thought the sleeve length was better, and like I said, the first few that I bought were great.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I got 3, and then their white ones. Like, I love a white t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Their white ones are like sheer, man.
The Fresh Clean ones are okay. I have
like I put it on. I was like, oh, seriously?
Showing a little nipple.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I guess I'm not wearing this.
Yeah, there's a white one coming in this next pack, so I'm curious if it'll be. Yeah, that was my I've had a few white shirts like that, and it's like,
yeah,
this is weird.
Yeah, where I'm like, I guess I won't wear this.
Yeah,
but whatever. Yeah, t-shirts.
Yeah, I wish there was just. I mean, I guess there's a lot of variation, but the main thing that they advertise with this, right, is that you'll look. It's like you'll look ripped no matter what your body's like. But I've had some people tell me like, yeah, dude, you put it on and from the front you look awesome. You turn to the side, it's like, I'm still fat.
Which is true. Like, I feel like that's true with Fresh Clean threads too. As I put it on, I'm like, oh yeah, and then I turn to the side, I'm like, how is there so much?
Yeah, it's I fought it as long as I could, but it's t-shirt weather again.
Yeah.
Can't do. I did hoodies up till the end of last week.
Yeah,
and it's like in the 80s here, and I'm like, I'll still put on the hoodie.
Yeah, well, it was 80 yesterday, and so I went to this activity wearing one of my Target t-shirts, and I was like, nope, this thing has not like. Apparently, it's got for me a weight range where it fits the way I like it, and I'm at the end of it where I'm like, I don't like it anymore. But if I go up the size, it'll just look like I'm wearing a clown shirt. Like it'll look, it's like too big. And I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're getting to that weather where I'm like, I guess I need to start doing something again.
I'm trying to remember who said this about one of our friends who will not be named, who apparently wore some tight shirts at some point because the person was like, oh yeah, the stuffed sausage guy.
Oh yeah, the stuffed sausage guy.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. Like, I think I said this last week. I don't know. I tried the ones that Rob wears.
He has the woven ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got one of those and put it on, and I was like, oh, good, suck no. Like,
are they way tighter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I was like, oh, okay, so you're one of those companies that only makes clothes for skinny people.
Yeah.
Like, which is why, like, I hate most. That's why shopping for t-shirts sucks. Because I'm like, you guys do know that most guys aren't built the way you make these shirts.
Yeah.
Like, their models are always like 6'1" and 175 pounds. I'm like, I don't know any 6'1", 175 pound dudes.
Yeah.
But okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, should we jump in?
Yeah, we should. Let's talk about anxiety.
Anxiety and ADHD. The follow-up. We got at least one listener saying that we basically described the situation, but we didn't say anything about what to do about it. We never do that.
What?
But I will say, I find that like understanding and the change that comes from that is like more than half the battle.
Yeah.
And I think we skip over that oftentimes too much, and then we don't know how to change. But I think for this, we've got some notes here, but I think for this, and you tell me what you think. Like, I think one of the most important challenges in any relationship is like the way that we're viewing the relationship. And I think it really factors into this dynamic where, like, am I looking at my partner as someone who's going to like challenge me to grow and like let go of things that aren't serving me and, pick up and develop things that will make me better? Or am I looking at my partner as somebody who's there to meet my needs and satisfy, something for me? And I don't think that it's like necessarily, a complete dichotomy. I think there's obviously some overlap, but I think if you're short on the growth side of it, it doesn't matter what the issue is. It's going to be a struggle.
Yeah, which we've talked about that idea of, because like I can think of A handful of people I've worked with over the years, where they get the idea that their spouse is the one who should more or less manage their mental health for them.
Yeah.
And even that phrase, like I saw it on a t-shirt a couple of weeks ago. Some dude was wearing a t-shirt and it said, "Happy wife, happy life."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, good crap. Still, huh? Like,
dude, I came up with a new one the other day.
Can we put it on a t-shirt?
Yeah. Happy me, happy we.
Oh, see, that's way better.
Like if we're both striving to like be our best versions of ourselves, then the we becomes a lot easier. It's not easy necessarily, but yeah.
Well, that's like
happy meanness, happy weeness.
He said weeness. Oh, dude. Remind me at the end to tell you about something I can't tell you about right now.
Sounds good.
So anyway, but I do think, right, like the number where, yeah, they become reliant on their spouse to fix the thing,
mm-hmm.
which I'm more likely to attribute to the anxious member of the couple.
Yeah, they're more likely to view their partner as like a tool or an obstacle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas the ADHD person is, at a minimum, more likely to be told they're just not engaging at all.
Yeah.
When really, I think no, and obviously, right, again, it's not a black and white thing, but I think there's times where they're just like, they are just challenging. They're challenging for growth, and they're challenging, not in saying, well, I'm going to be an idiot, so you have to learn how to interact with me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this idea that I don't know. I like that. I like that description.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's not all of one and none of the other, but yeah.
No, and I think it's important if you're in that growth space, I think it's important to challenge yourself a bit to, get outside of the blame cycle and look at like, what are the strengths that we're both bringing? When I've heard couples say like, we're extremely different and here's what they bring, which sometimes irritates the crap out of me, but I have to recognize that it's a necessary ingredient for our relationship. And for me, they're able to, like, I think, deal a lot better with the inherent differences that come when you put two people together, right? And like harmonize those things a little bit better versus try and create sameness. And I think that we described the dynamic, the kind of cycle that sometimes ensues. So I think if we just look at the strengths, like the anxious partner oftentimes is bringing like organization, and sometimes like they're like the driver of growth and improvement. And I'll get into kind of like the internal process there that is a struggle, I think, but like the ADHD partner oftentimes is kind of carrying the torch of spontaneity and excitement, like new ideas. And so I think sometimes relationships can feel like, the anxious partner feels overburdened. And
right, for having to take the responsibility for all of life,
all of like the boring parts anyway, right? And then the ADHD partner feels like they're kind of suffocating, like there's no room to have fun or like, be how we used to be before we had all this stuff.
Right.
And I think if you just think about those two things, if you just ask anybody like, hey, what do you think of all of these characteristics, like, organization and motivation and spontaneity and excitement? They'd be like, oh yeah, they're all good, right? But then when you put them in people, it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, and then we start to kind of, yeah, but we probably wouldn't word them that way. The anxious partner would probably say like, disorganized, lazy, forgetful.
Right.
And then
just wants to play all the time.
Yeah. The ADHD partner would probably say like controlling and demanding and like excessive, right? But yeah, if you look at the potential there, I think maybe like the internal process that gets triggered a lot is the anxious partner isn't good at applying filters and saying like, how important is this? Is this important? How urgent is this actually? They're not checking themselves there. So when somebody checks them from the outside, all they hear is like, you're not here for me and you're abandoning me. Right. And I can't count on you. And then the ADHD partner, right, is like distracting themselves oftentimes from anything like monotonous or uncomfortable or, and very sensitive to rejection a lot of times. And so when the anxious partner is trying to give them some of the feedback that they need, right, where it's like, hey, you can do better than this, right? You can grow. Here's some tools that you could use that would actually help you do better. It's like, nope, I've got it. It's kind of like, or like a shutdown. Yeah. And so it's like, rather than being able to really like lean into those strengths, there's a lot of activating of insecurities going on. And then you really do feel alone or judged or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think like I've been thinking about the positives and negatives of individual traits a lot lately. Because I think, usually when someone is coming in and challenging and pushing, to us, they're highlighting the inherent weakness.
Yeah.
And most people with any sense of awareness, they don't need it pointed out. They know exactly where the weakness is.
Yeah.
Whether they're willing to admit to it or not, that's a different story. But most of them know that's my weak spot. And so if you bring it up, you're going to get a reaction from me that is not going to be one of like, oh, hey, thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you're trying to help. It's like, yeah, I know it's a problem. I don't like thanks for making me feel like a piece of crap.
Yeah.
But I was talking to someone the other day about, they were talking about being sensitive and they felt like they were too sensitive. And I said, well, but isn't sensitivity a good thing?
Yeah.
And we spent a few minutes talking about how sensitivity was a positive. And then they were talking about something that was to them inherently good. And I said, yeah, but isn't there a negative flip side to that? I can't remember now what the negative was, but it was just this idea that like, no, for anything, for ADHD, for anxiety, like, no, there are positives to those negatives. And so a lot of it, I think, does come down to what is it you choose to focus on? And
and where do you start?
Right.
The conversation, and it's hard to start it from like a strengths vulnerability place when you're already in protective mode, telling yourself that either my partner, I'm never, like the ADHD partner may be saying I'll never be enough for my partner.
I'll never be organized enough. I'll never be.
Yeah. And then the anxious person saying this person's never going to be there for me. Right. And that can't ever depend on them. But I think when you highlight the strengths, if you're able to get yourself into that mindset and communicate that to each other, I think it's much easier then to look at yourself and say, like, what's the massive issue that my anxiety or your ADHD and is causing our relationship, right? Like, how is it affecting you? And I think we said this in the previous episode about this, but like, this doesn't, if you identify with any of these things we're saying, it doesn't necessarily mean you have like an anxiety disorder or ADHD. These are just kind of on a continuum, like, where do you land, and the value of, oftentimes when people listen to episodes like this or read anything like this, it's like they're doing the exact opposite of what we said we need to start with. It's like, let me see what this article or this podcast says about my partner so that I can then get them to see it this way and change. And then it's like, so what are you doing? About your side of it, right? Like, which again, it never works. Like, it never works to, hey, I found this thing that really describes you. You should listen to it. Like,
right. Oh, cool. You found the thing that describes all of my negative aspects and traits.
Yeah. And who's the more likely to do that in this situation? It's the anxious partner, who's already like over their influence is already like in that direction. Mm-hmm. But like, I think on these ideas, like in my relationship, I'm definitely on the anxious side. My wife's on the ADHD side. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, like, it's taken me a while to like really understand the role that anxiety plays in my life, view its strengths, but also like be really honest with myself about like, this is maybe an overstatement, right? But I feel like it's important to state it. Like, I feel like it's been catastrophic for my family and my wife, right? And I think she would say, like, I see how these things have really, like, you know, been really difficult for you, right?
Right.
And it's taken, I think it's taken a while to get to that conversation, but I think that it feels like we can talk about it much more in this way now. And like, I think the hard part about the anxiety side is that it aligns, like we said last time, it aligns so much more with like what we value in society.
Yeah.
That we sometimes just view it as the right way. Mm-hmm. Right. And there's value in it for sure. I'm not saying it's like the wrong way, right? Just like there's value in, you know, approaching things from the other side. But like I if I look back over the last 10 years, I was there, you know, and present and did a lot of good things with my kids and with my wife. So I'm not saying like I don't like, this isn't like so self-deprecating that I'm like beating myself up and not being accurate about the impact, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I know I've been a good dad and a good husband in a lot of ways, right? But when I look at like how anxiety has, particularly when I had like a lot more responsibilities and a lot like I was on edge all the time, right? And I snapped like all the time, and everything was urgent, everything was important, and like everything was frustrating. And I've asked them in different settings, because I feel like in the last, I don't know, maybe like the last 2 years for sure, but maybe as long as like the last 4-ish years, I feel like I've finally been able to take hold of like, this is my issue. Mm-hmm. And you know, maybe we did that in bits and pieces before, but like, this is my issue, and like, I hate how it makes me feel, right? And so if I feel this way, like, how are people feeling when they're around me? And so so a lot of the stuff that I've done to kind of alleviate it, like in some situations, like, it's literally felt magical with the relief that I have felt, you know, and she has talked a lot more about, you know, identifying with a lot of the features of like ADHD, and, you know, talking through how she views herself that way. And it's really opened up a lot of conversations about the way we do things. And, I don't know, it's been super helpful. And I think that, what I just described is probably like a pretty common thing for a lot of people, whether it's anxiety and ADHD or just different dynamics. Right. And, I think like one of the biggest shifts I think I had to make, and I'd have to ask her if this is, if she sees she feels like she's made this other shift that a lot of people on the ADHD side, need to make too. But like forgetting things and like not doing things the way that I would do them, like, it is not personal.
Yeah.
And I think that's it's interesting. And I feel like it's helpful for me to view it this way. It's like, man, if I was viewing that as personal before, like how invested was I in my own self-importance to really like not look at that differently. Right. And when you're like on fire with anxiety, you're telling yourself like, I'm in crisis. And it's like, well, who put you in crisis? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, and a lot of it is your own process putting you in that anxious state. Right. And sure, there's circumstantial things that generate anxiety too, but like not taking it personally and recognizing that it's like, it's just a challenge. Right. And that's all that it is. Right. And again, like, I think certain times they were easier than others, but that mindset shift is important. And then I think for the ADHD person who oftentimes can get in the habit of like appearing really cool and rational in those moments, like they need to recognize that like the anxiety also isn't completely irrational, right? You can't completely dismiss it as like, well, I think you're just freaking out. It's like, well, yes, I might be having like a stronger reaction than I should, but there's something here that we're not talking about, right? And that we're both capable of addressing and talking about. And I think those two shifts are really, really important. Otherwise it just spins, the same way we've been describing.
Yeah. No, I'm laughing because I actually just gave a couple. He refers to himself as my paid best friend, or I'm his paid best friend. But I recently gave them homework where essentially I said to the wife, I said, I want you to spend the next couple of weeks leaning into his ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Like now they don't, right? Like that's not how they talk about it. It's the aloofness, the constant seeking for humor kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I said, if he makes a joke, like you lean way into it, like high five it. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And she did, and it was uncomfortable for her. And his homework this last time was, I said, okay, it's time to lean into her anxiety.
Yeah.
Like I just wanted them to recognize, right? Ultimately, it was a goal to be like, hey, and one of her takeaways from it was, yeah, there's aspects here that I felt like I used to have that I felt like I've lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed some of them back.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping a similar outcome for him where he realizes like, oh yeah, there is benefit to leaning into this a little bit more, not trying to make a joke out of everything and not trying to,
mm-hmm.
But it is kind of that idea of, just kind of trying to see it from, like, no, it's not always about me.
Yeah.
The whole not personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we almost like, especially now, it seems like we're almost primed to detect things that way. Mm-hmm. And if we don't, we're not being just to ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, in some ways, that's like the most unjust thing you can do to yourself. Constantly look for areas where people are like disrespecting you, letting you down, and just like punish yourself with that all the time. Right. Yeah. Instead of like recognizing we're all dealing with different things. And, like your struggle is hard enough without me piling something on top of it. And so is mine. Right. Obviously mine is hard enough if I'm like asking you to shoulder it with me. Right. Like we're both dealing with enough as it is. And I think that, I mean, there's lots of ways to work this through, I guess, in a relationship. But I think one of the best starting places is like, if you're, no matter what end of this you're on, just recognizing that, like we talked about with the book review, like this is your thing. So what are you going to do about it? If it were completely up to you, what would you be doing with it? And in some ways, people might, and maybe this is more like on the ADHD side, it might be like, well, if I didn't have them around, it wouldn't bother me because no one would be pointing it out, right? And the anxious person might be like, well, yeah, it'd be way easier because I could just control everything and,
Right.
I wouldn't have to deal with anybody. But that's the reason that relationships are, meant for growth, because here you are bumping up against somebody that is highlighting
It's almost constant
all the rough
friction.
edges. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, for me, if I had to say, as somebody who, who deals with anxiety that, like we've talked about before, can easily like convert to like burnout and depression.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to pick like the two most helpful things I've done, of all the things I've tried, I've never tried medication for it. So I don't know what impact that would have, but like two types of meditation have been extremely helpful for me. And like, at first, before I really started diving into that, I would have said like exercise 100%. But even right now, I'm doing the meditation,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't exercised consistently in a while. And I'm like, it's about the same. So imagine the impact of both of them once I get those going, right? I'll be unstoppable. But the mindfulness stuff, like there's a focus meditation that I'll do, which is like, just kind of what most people think of when they think of meditation, where it's like pick a point of focus, and as your thoughts pull you aside, come back to that point of focus. I'll do like a counting thing, or breath. That one is kind of what I started with. That kind of just relaxes me. But the one that's more in kind of the mindfulness realm, where it's like what negative and painful energy do I need to like make contact with and release, and just going through a process of like every day, kind of like taking out the trash in a way. I was joking with a couple of my clients. I was like, dude, I think my first session of the day probably thinks I smoked like a couple bowls before the session, because I do it before session, and I'll do it throughout session, right?
Super,
but I'm just like, what's up, dude? Like super chill, and they're like, whoa. But which is really kind of a weird state for me to be in. A lot of people, it's weird. I think I must mask it in a lot of situations really well, because the feedback I get from a lot of people is like, you're so laid back. And I'm like, really? Because I'm not. I'm glad that I'm putting that out there, right? But like, so that's really helped me actually feel it. And then I think for the person on the ADHD side, right, I think that oftentimes, like, especially now, what ends up happening is like a lot of screen time, but man, not all, I mean, there's kind of like the classic ADD, like deep thinker, kind of lost in conversation type of thing. And then there's like more the hyperactive side. But I think movement, like healthy movement, is like, so again, exercise, super critical. I think mindfulness and meditation is also helpful, but I think like embracing that, like, external reminders and lists and tools, like, don't mean you're failing. They're actually they're helps
you succeeding.
Yeah. And and I think when I've seen people like really lean into that and almost just say like, this is just how I do it because I need it, because I won't remember, right? Like that whole rejection sensitivity thing goes down a bit, right? Where it's like, in a way, just like the anxious person is telling themselves a bunch of lies, I think one of the ADHD lies is kind of like, I should have this all figured out. I should be able to do this like everybody else. I should be, I shouldn't need help. And the act of seeking it out or seeking out tools feels so shameful to me. probably because a lot of those tools were probably thrown at them as kids. Like, hey, why don't you freaking write this down, you idiot? Like, so there's a lot that goes along with it. But I think just kind of embracing some things that work, because ultimately you feel way better if you can get past all of the lies that are going on in our minds about this. All the things we tell ourselves to keep ourselves safe from something, but ironically, like driving the knife in further. When we get out of our own way, it's much easier to like connect with ourselves, own who we are, right? That's always like the first step to change, right? Is like, just, it's okay. That's what you do. It's fine. Like for me, it's like, if I don't meditate, I'm probably going to be on edge, and you're probably not going to like me very much. So I got to do this, right? Instead of saying, why do I have to meditate so that I can,
right. It's, and I like that idea of reframing it to not, it's not, and I mean, it's a cheap statement, I guess, in a way, but to me, the real strength is not in not having weakness. It's in the ability to recognize and own your weakness.
Yeah.
Like, I don't do this thing well. I'm aware I don't do it well. Do I want to hear about it every single day? No, I probably don't. But I do need to accept that it's, and this is the other thing I've been kind of talking a lot with clients about lately, is the idea of, look, start viewing it as less a reflection of who you are and more as a reflection of where you are.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I might struggle with ADHD, and certainly that's the side I line up with more. We talked about that when we talked about this. But I like being able to recognize, like, this is where I am. If there's aspects of this I don't like, I can change them.
Yeah.
Either through practice or medication, but there are solutions to these things. Now, will it ever be easy for me like it is for someone else? I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah.
Just like I suspect that, for someone who, like, as much as you've taught yourself to not show your anxiety, I think, right, but you're actively having to do something with it frequently. It's not like you're just, well, sweet, I guess I've mastered this. It's not there anymore.
Yeah.
No, it's still there. You've just learned how to interact with it differently. And so I like that idea of being able to recognize and just accept. Rob and I, maybe I didn't bring it up with him. I don't know. I was listening to some lady talk about anxiety, and she talked about the idea of practicing radical acceptance. And I really had a hard time with the fact that she used radical, because I thought, you're just talking about acceptance.
But it's like, so radical.
I was like, the crap, there's no radical here. There's just, you accept it or you don't.
Yeah.
And to me, like, if you're sitting there trying to make excuses for it, you don't accept it yet.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to make excuses for it. Don't make an excuse for it. Like, it's a thing I struggle with. Am I proud of it? No. Do I wish I didn't? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's where I'm at right now. And again, to me, there's something about that statement. It's not like it bothers me when people are like, well, I mean, I can't help it. It's who I am. I mean, it doesn't have to be who you are. Like, if you don't like that, then don't have it be who you are.
Well, and especially when it's like, behaviors. So maybe like you're saying, I like that. It's like, where are you? I'm really freaking stuck.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. Like, stuck does not mean necessarily like permanently cemented.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It means you can't currently find the only way forward, you can't see it.
Yeah.
And, obviously at that point I'm going to like, well, because there's not only one way forward. So
yeah,
start reframing some stuff and find a different path.
Yeah. No. And I think just in terms of gender dynamics, whether you would call it anxiety or ADHD, I think a lot more guys would fall on how we're describing the ADHD side of things. So I do want to say this because I think this is important. Like, as a man who struggles with anxiety and oftentimes feels like less of a man because of it, right? I think that's probably why I'm able to mask it the way that I do. But I think there are a ton of guys that deal with anxiety and stress, and like, all you see is irritability.
Yep.
And like high productivity and, just like driving themselves super hard. And sadly, I think it oftentimes gets mislabeled as like, oh, well, that guy's just like, an egomaniac or something trying to prove something to himself, right? And it's like, no, he's trying to outrun his freaking anxiety.
Yeah, he's trying to keep
like nipping at his
functional.
heels all the time, right? And I just wish it were easier as men to talk about that. Before maybe like 90s, a lot of books written about like men and depression, and don't want to talk about depression, right? I feel like there's a lot more conversations about depression suicide, things like that, right? But not a lot going on with like, because anxious means fearful, irrational, like those two alone, right? I could keep going, but those two alone, like, not a man, not a man.
Yep.
So I think that we're, I've even now, even knowing this, right? Sometimes I'll say things or I'll ask questions and I'm like, oh man, did that make me sound anxious? It's like, well, yeah, because you are. So like, what do you want to do about that, right? Like, you can think through it differently and do some of the things that help you, and then you will feel better. That's the first and foremost, like that's the most important thing. And then by extension, then sure, you'll sound like more of a man, whatever. Like, but like you'll feel more calm, you'll feel more grounded. And, but yeah, any dudes out there that feel like, they deal with anxiety, but don't know how to talk about it, freaking text us, dude. You can do it right here from the platform you're listening on.
Yep.
Yeah. Ask us any questions or tell us your story.
Yeah. Especially like, I would love to hear, because I think you're right. Certainly in my experience with the people I work with, I think, anxiety is the much less common among men.
Yeah.
But like you said, it doesn't mean it doesn't show up, and it does have, as you've kind of alluded to today a couple of times, a pretty significant impact on your family dynamics and on your interpersonal relationships. And I think, like you said, like, at one point you said to you, it has felt at times catastrophic. And my initial instinct was, it probably wasn't.
Yeah, but see, that's my anxiety.
But right, like things. Exactly, like that's the funny thing. Like, I spend so much time telling people, like, look, not all anxiety is irrational.
Yeah,
sure, some of it is, but often it's very much founded in a rational thought or a rational process or something. Like where it is a very, like, no, the thing I'm actually super anxious about is 100% a possibility. It's not even a long shot of a possibility. It's, it's a possibility.
Yeah.
But again, recognizing, and even with the ADHD, like, I think there's benefit in learning to recognize the way the issue colors the perception, right? The way that my ADHD probably makes it seem like everything's a little bit worse.
Yeah.
And for sure, the way the anxiety, I got sidetracked because this is all my way of saying, like, yeah, if you've got a story about what this looks like for you, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
One, just so that other men who deal with the same thing know, like, I'm not the only one who deals with this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Pay it forward by texting, because then, obviously we're not going to out you on air.
Right.
But then we can refine our content to be more helpful to the people that are actually listening and those that will listen as a result. So, yeah. You got to send us home, dude.
And join us next time on the Manspace.
That's all we got.